people would come to me and I would offer intuitive insight. I would go down to the nitty-gritty of what was going on spiritually for them, emotionally for them, psychologically for them. And then we would begin talking about emotional intelligence, how you feel about your life, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world. And then applying those two towards practical application in the choices we make and the actions that we take, the paths that we choose. And then the time comes when you get the results from all of that, the fruit, and it pays off. So I always say, and even in my books, it pays to be you. It pays to be the most authentic version of yourself and tapping into that.
Welcome to another episode of Adeptus On-Air. Our guest today is, and I hope I don't goof this up because you just taught me how to say it, but Leslie Juvin-Acker.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. I'm Ashley Greene and I'm your host, and I'm very excited to be speaking with her today. She's a renowned emotional intelligence expert, celebrated author, life coach to executives and celebrities. And whether you're a leader, entrepreneur, or simply looking to improve your emotional well-being, Leslie's wisdom is here to give you a richer, more authentic life. I've read a lot about you. I've read your bio. I've taken a gander at the books. And I'm really interested to know is what was your breakthrough moment that helped you to combine all of these things into your process? You know, you have spirituality, you have emotional intelligence, you have life skills. What was the thing that brought those together? What was the thread that wove those together?
Practical application and results. That's really what it was. It was the ability to say, okay, I have a problem, I have a quandary, I have issues in my life that I don't know how to overcome. And then people would come to me and I would offer intuitive insight. I would go down to the nitty-gritty of what was going on spiritually for them, emotionally for them, psychologically for them. And then we would begin talking about emotional intelligence, how you feel about your life, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world. And then applying those two towards practical application in the choices we make and the actions that we take, the paths that we choose. And then the time comes when you get the results from all of that, the fruit, and it pays off. So I always say, and even in my books, it pays to be you. It pays to be the most authentic version of yourself and tapping into that. And I think that the problem at any client will figure is if you're not being yourself, if you're not tapped in and tuned on into yourself, into your soul, to your spirit, then you're on the wrong path. So it's always getting back to yourself to get back on the right path.
That's really interesting. You know, one thing that you mentioned was authenticity. How would you define authenticity and its importance in your life coaching teaching and how it gets people to reach their goals?
For me, authenticity is about just expressing yourself honestly and communicating exactly what you're feeling, exactly what you're going through, acknowledging your challenges and your struggles. A lot of people want to pretend that their life is sunshine and roses all the time, but we wouldn't be in business if it was. So it's always about being, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. The most exciting part is the path between that and becoming the person you want to be, which is the person that you already are. But it is, again, going back to yourself during that process and really uncovering everything you're not, so you can allow yourself to be everything you are: loving, kind, capable, happy, peaceful, joyful, serene, all of these things. You're letting go of all those qualities about yourself that you think limited, sick, sad, angry, all these. That's not who you are. That's how you feel. So once you let go of that and start to step into your true self and feel and be your true self, then it's easier to get along in the world. It's easier to relate to people. It's easier to understand people because you see yourself in them. So everything starts to become much more easier the more honest you are about yourself and where you are, where you've been, and where you want to go.
Right. So when somebody reaches out to you for coaching, what is generally the reason that they're reaching out to? What crossroads are they at in their life? What obstacles are they facing when they realize that what I'm doing isn't working and I really need a new approach?
Well, one of it is you got to realize that I created the problems. so so the thing is if you can learn and recognize that you've created this problem and that you can uncreate it, whether it is by putting yourself in situations with difficult people or making choices that are self-sabotaging, talk about that
Mm-hmm.
in money formula, is your thoughts and feelings are not aligned with your goals and your vision. So if you recognize that what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what I'm doing is not aligned with where I want to go and what I want to do and who I want to be, then it's time to change. And that's that
Right.
period of self reflection that you have to go through from where I am and where I want to be to analyze and look at all of those and let it go.
Right. So that's a really good point. Have you ever had a client who, and I think Taylor Swift said it, that it's easier to look into the sun than into the mirror, right? To look at yourself. Have you ever had a client that had real difficulty looking at themselves and understanding that they were the root of their problem? And how do you overcome that?
Oh, yeah. Life is a mirror for king and slave. That's a great poem by Madeline Bridges. Life is a poem for king and slave, a mirror. And I like to tell people that if you can look at yourself and see, through your life is the mirror. Your relationships, your physical physique, the car you drive, the house you own, everything is a mirror of your psychological state of mind, and recognize around yourself, oh, it's messy or it's complicated, or you're messy, you're complicated, you're difficult, you're arrogant. Looking at that and going, oh gosh, I lack the virtues to have the life that I want to live. You want to have a life that's serene. Guess what? You got to be serene. You want to have a life that's loving and you want to have people who are loving towards you. You got to learn to love yourself and love others unconditionally. So it is that school of hard knocks for a lot of people. A lot of people learn the hard way. They don't want to take advice. They want to learn the hard way. And as a coach, sometimes you have to let your client learn the hard way, fall down, smack their face, get up and realize, oh, okay, I need to clean my act up. And sometimes the consequences are I lose my job, I break up, my kids won't talk to me, I've lost all my money, I've blown it all on drugs, whatever, for you to hit rock bottom and then say, okay, I need to change. But just somebody saying to you, you need to change because they can see down the road the logical consequence of your choices. Nah,
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to see that. Sometimes people have to learn the hard way, and that is through experience.
Right. So it's interesting that you say through the hard way. So there's, I read a lot about spirituality and spiritual awakenings and really understanding some of the concepts that you just said that, your outer reality is really a mirror image of your inner self. And oftentimes people don't realize that until they've lost everything. And, that's sort of defined as a death of the ego. And then, really having to look at yourself and saying, what am I? Right. So when somebody first comes to you, in that state of mind where they don't know how to answer that question anymore, when they say, I used to define myself as I am this executive, or I am the lead of this movie, and they've lost all of those things. What's your piece of advice for how they move forward and understand at that point that they now have the ability to be whatever they want to be?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like you read Engineering Your Mood, my book. Feel like the person you want to be. And that's the premise of my entire book is that there is this concept of yourself that we create.
Mhm.
Celebrities talk about, I was this Hollywood star, or I was this pro athlete, or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. I was this executive. And they have to realize after a certain point that becomes almost like prison walls. You become very confined by this, and your persona is this, and your relationships are like this. And I think as your spirit grows, as you gain in consciousness and awareness of I am not this person, this is a persona, this is the concept of myself that I have taken on. It's like a hermit crab with the shell.
Mhm.
Eventually you get too big for that, and you intuitively, all of us, we want to bust out of these shells that we're in, because you can't be 6 years old forever, you can't be 30 years old forever. You gotta bust out and change and evolve. And which is cool about what I say in my book, Engineering Your Mood, that you are a formless, shapeless awareness. You are a life giving force. You are something that just exudes, but you exude energy. You exude qualities about your inherent nature that long to be expressed: creativity, joy, love. And if you confine yourself in this concept of yourself, the hermit crab shell, and you're just these limited things, then you start to feel trapped by them. And by a natural function of our being, we have to break free from all of that all the time. We can't be Oprah forever. We can't be Freddie Mercury forever. We want to be something bigger than that. And we're constantly being bigger and bigger and expanding. But there is this fear of this expansion, this fear of our own power, this fear of who we actually are. And so we confine ourselves. But the end of that is pain and suffering, and eventually it becomes so painful and it hurts so much that we have no choice than to bust out of that.
Right. So that's interesting, right? Because you have to, like you said, you have to reach rock bottom. You really have to understand pain. You have to understand the confinement. And in the confinement, you realize that what you really want is freedom, right? You want freedom. And when you find freedom, you've then connected to your higher self, or, your purpose, or, you've disconnected from all of the ways that you've defined yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. If there's anybody, because the client that you work with, they've generally already come to this realization, or have you had a client who you have to explain these concepts to?
All the time. That's the reason why I wrote the book. I got tired of repeating myself 1,000 times. It's always that, because I say there's always a secondary benefit to who you are. There's a benefit of being a professional athlete. There's a benefit of being a famous actor. There's a benefit of being an executive. There's something that you get. There's always a gain. But
External
there's a problem.
validation.
Huh?
Would you define that? I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but
no.
would you define that as external validation, or?
It could be. It could be that. It could be the money. It could be the sex. It could be the external validation. It could be feeling like you're immortal. If you're remembered as this, then you'll never die. There's a lot of secondary benefits to why we keep ourselves confined. We think, oh, to be famous or to be super rich, to be this or to be that, then I will be free. No, that's not how it is at all. I'm telling you. I know some of the richest people on the face of the earth, and I'm telling you, we are constantly evolving and we're constantly changing, and to put ourselves into this little shell and stay there is very, very painful. It hurts, physically hurts. It makes us sick.
Right. So, what you're saying is that, people define freedom in the way that, you described, where they think, if I have this or I have that, or, all of those things. I guess, do you think that that is the first thing that somebody has to, I guess, really realize before they can evolve or they can ascend,
Yeah.
into the next, their best life? Is that the first thing that somebody really has to realize, that you can't define freedom within that liminal space, or necessarily in the 3D world, or in a way that we've been conditioned by society?
You know what? It's interesting. So I had, I'll say a little story. One time, this one woman came in, and anyway, she was telling me some kind of story and explaining how things are and why everything was difficult for her and these and that. And I said, "How's that story working out for you?" And she just thought I'd slapped her right across the face, because it's a story.
Mm-hmm.
We tell
Yeah.
ourselves story about who we are and how other people are and what these situations are, and we're always telling stories. So the question is what is the story that I'm telling?
Yeah.
You're the storyteller, you're the writer, you're imposing upon yourself these limitations, you're doing all of these things, you're the producer of your life. There is no external decision maker, there's no external mind, there's no external power. If everything is happening within your own locus of control, what you choose, what you think, what you say, what you do, then you have the ultimate power as to where you want your life to go. Can't control everybody else, can't control the external per se, but you have this ability to control your narrative. And we
Right.
we have to take that back to that narrative. What is the story that I'm trying to say to myself? And then with that, sometimes people say, "Well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm stuck like this, and I've got whatever." You can put every label on yourself, and I say, "Well, eventually you'll get bored of it and want to do something else." And it is
Mm-hmm.
so true. We get bored of whatever drama we're causing,
Mm-hmm.
alcoholism, this, that, and the other. We get bored and then we want to do something else. It's our nature. We want to do something else. So, yeah, I think as long as we remember that we're creative beings and we're creating our life and we're creating our own character and our
Mm-hmm.
experiences and how we interact, then it goes back to, oh, I'm the creator of my life and I get to choose.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept is being a co-creator in your life, right? You're co-creating with the universe, with energy, with all of those things. And I think, when you mention freedom and understanding that you're really creating and setting, the narrative aside that you've carried with your life that is not serving you at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Do you think that, something that you said is, and I'm trying to find the best way to articulate this, but it is part of it realizing your power or taking back your power. So for instance, like the narrative that you have, you lose your power, right? If you're carrying this all over, you're reacting based on your narrative. So you have to sort of take back your personal power to find your inner freedom and then co-create your best life, right? So
Yeah.
how, so how, I guess, how do you, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, what my
No, I
question
mean
is.
I hear what you're saying. What it essentially is to take back your power is that you have given your power to somebody else. The power
Right,
of your
exactly.
outcomes. Who oh, so and so won't love me, and well then love
So,
yourself.
right.
you know
So I guess my question is, how would you define taking back your power? How do you take back your power? Or how do you realize that you've been giving it away?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. I have this house. I bought this house. I don't own it anymore. I'm still living here. I'm about to move to France, but I bought this house as a fixer-upper. My goal was to fix it up and then sell it
Mm-hmm.
later down the road. And so it's been 8 years, and now I put it on the market. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew in my mind, I saw the number 1.25 million. I bought it for
Mm-hmm.
555 and I was like, I'm going to sell it for 1.25 million. So I list the house with our first agent, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm confident I can get you what you want. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A month goes by, nothing's happening. Everybody's saying, oh, well, this isn't worth that much, and this and that. And they're trying to tell me, they're going to try to tell me what my house is worth and how this is going to go and what the market says and all this other stuff. And it was 6 months of that. Six
Mm-hmm.
months as I was looking for another house in France. 6 months of everybody telling me, oh, no, it's not worth this. It's not that, blah, 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 blah. And there were days my husband and I, we walk our dogs together and we talk. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband said, I refuse to believe what other people tell me. I refuse to believe it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to believe this story that this is how it's going to go, because nobody else gets to decide for me the outcomes of my life. I do. And so we hired a new agent and we told her what was going on, and she says, I will help you. And she
Mm-hmm.
saw it, she got it.
Right.
And months go on, we had lowball offers. We had people go, well, I'm paying cash and I'm going to give you this and you're going to pay my agent and all this other stuff. And I said no. And I remember my real estate agent was like, this is a cash offer. It's a hard market right now. Like, there's so many houses falling out of escrow, and you got to pay for this other house in France, and you need the cash. And the time was ticking and the pressure was crunching. But
Mm-hmm.
I could feel from the depths of my being that was not the way to go. And so I said, well, no, let's hold on, because nobody gets to determine for me the outcomes of my life except me. I get to decide. And lo and behold, woman came and she said, I love this house. I'm not even going to live in it. I live down the road, but I have the money. So I'll give them what they want. 1.25 million. Didn't have an agent, no concessions, nothing. Cash money. So I got that, but it was because I knew that it was for me. If I had believed other people's stories, oh no, it's a hard market, no one's getting loans, the house prices are going down. If I had believed all this and I had believed the evidences of my senses, I would have succumbed to that. I would have lost a serious amount of money. So
Right.
that's a lesson of faith and believing in yourself and not giving your power to other people. It's the stories, it's the rumors and the rumblings. Oh, things are bad. The second you believe it, you're done. So don't
Right.
believe it.
Yeah, that's okay. So when I was listening to your story, I would say that a lot of people would have been worried and fearful, if they
Yeah,
were
of
in your
course.
position. And but you're not worried or fearful because you have your power and you have faith in the universe, and faith in you being able to create your reality, and you're powerful to do that, and all of those things. And so how do people overcome that fear, the fear and the worry?
It's so funny. I wouldn't say that I wasn't stressed about it because I was pissed because I was like, how is this possible? And one day my husband and I were like, God, like I said it out loud. I said, God, where are you? Where are you? What are you? And I told my husband, I said, if I have to sell this house for less, then that means that everything that I believe and everything I've talked in my books is not real and it's a false and I've deluded myself.
Mhm.
And I said to him straight up, I was like, I don't want to live in this reality if that's the case.
Right.
And then I went to sleep and I had a dream and I met God. God is love. God is love, and I felt and I witnessed the power of love, almost like shuffling all the cards and moving all the atoms to make a way. And I heard telepathically, love makes a way. And I realized that it is love. And I woke up and I said, I know who God is. I know what God is. I know what the spirit and the force of the universe is, and that is love. So you operate in fear and then you have love. Well, I fixed this house up. I spent 8 years lovingly, almost slavish love slave to this house to fix it up every day, 16 hours a day sometimes. And I sold this house so I could give my children a better future in Europe because we're French too. And that was motivated in love. And my mom said to me, she goes, Leslie, you're doing all this out of love. You will have the right outcome because of your motivations. So if you're motivated in love and you're committed to love and you're acting in love, love will make a way. And sometimes we operate so much out of fear and doubt
Mhm.
and power and trying to control, then guess what? It creates those outcomes where you play yourself and things fall apart. So it always is am I acting out of love? Am I acting out of selflessness for what my motivations and my actions are?
I really like that. I really like how you sort of defined, power or faith as love. So
Yeah.
if that's motivation, you can't possibly, not reach your outcome. And it's interesting too, in the things that you talked about, and you said control. And this is something I've talked to my mother about a lot. So she'll, like you said, you knew what you wanted from your outcome. But the difference between the way that you describe it and the way my mother would describe it is that she would try to control how she got to her outcome. And
Mm-hmm.
you just had faith that that was going to be the outcome. And you were fine with whatever avenue,
Right.
you took to come to that outcome, which I think is like a very interesting concept for people to understand and talk about is you can know what you want, but you can't be attached to how you get there.
That's right. I agree with that. I think what the interesting thing is spirit is always showing you with your intuition. Women get it especially because we have women's intuition, especially very, very strong. We get visions. We get visions, we get feelings, we get pulls. And for
Mhm.
me, I had this vision of a woman with shoulder length brown hair standing in the kitchen. And she was just so happy that we made this house for her. And I said that to my husband. I said, I know who she is. I said, she's not married or in a relationship, not married. I just knew. And I said to her, she's so grateful for us. She's so, all these things. And then as the time came and when she came into the picture, there she was, the woman with the shoulder length brown hair. She wasn't married. She had a partner. And
Mhm.
so when life has this like crazy, like up and down and roller coaster, sometimes we have to remember as humans, we are addicted to the drama. We love the ups and downs. We
Yeah,
love all the twists and the turns. And what would it be if we came to Earth and it was just, here's my thought, here's the result? That's not living. That's not the
right.
adventure. So it's very Joseph Murphy. The hero's journey and that kind of thing. But we love the up and down in the story. But it also is about discipline to your vision, discipline to the outcomes, and going with the flow and letting people come in and go out and serve their purpose and play their role as needed, for better or for worse.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I read a lot about this stuff, and I have been studying, spirituality and energy manipulation for a long time. And I've read that, sort of Earth is a school to learn how to manipulate energy, right?
Oh,
That's
very Doreen virtue.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, so what do you tell clients? I guess there's, when people are bogged down, in certain thought processes, what is your best advice to redirect your energy to something positive or something that reinforces, where you're trying to go rather than live in self doubt, which, is so easy for us to fall into, right? What is your best tool to change your mindset to be back in alignment?
Well, I think the easiest one, and I talk about that in engineering your mood, is well, what is the opposite of what I'm feeling now?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm feeling frustrated, the opposite of frustration is progress. So then you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling anxious. Don't reject the feeling that you're experiencing right now. If you're feeling angry, you're feeling rejected, you're feeling this and that. Experience it, write it, and say, what is this teaching me? This is teaching me something. Rejection is teaching me to not push people away, to not reject myself. It's teaching you something. So learn from that. And then you ask yourself, well, what's the opposite of what I'm feeling right now? You chose this experience, so then choose another experience, choose another mood. So instead of frustration, you feel progress. Well, what does
Mm-hmm.
progress feel like? Well, you always have clients say, well, it means that everybody's working with me and they're collaborating with me, and I get up and I go and everything's so easy and I'm in the flow. And you start to narrate the experience of progress. So you're sitting there, you're laying in bed and you're saying, oh, I have a migraine, I don't feel good, or I'm stressed or whatever. Well, then what's the opposite of that? And explore that feeling, explore that mood, allow your attention to go there. And before you know it, you start to be moved by it. Okay, well, I'm going to go get a shower. I'm going to put on a face mask. I'm going to go call a friend. I'm going to cry. And you start to go through the bridge of incidences and experiences that move you from one emotional and psychological state to another. And that is how we're able to get from one state to another, from one mood to another, is by allowing ourselves to say, well, what would that feel like? What would that be like? And then allow yourself to be moved to that.
I like that. That's really good advice. So that's not something I had ever really thought about before. So truthfully, the way that I would change my energy is just identifying that I was in the wrong mindset and then shifting to maybe even changing the subject. In
Yeah.
my brain, if there was something that I was worried about at work, it'd be like, oh gosh, well, that's not something I should be thinking about right now. I've asked to, have the highest outcome of that situation, and I've given that away to the universe, and now I'm going to go think about something else that makes me feel positive. But I really like that tool. That's not something. I mean, you're still staying on the same subject, but
Yeah.
you're also seeing what it really feels like, to
Yeah.
have the highest possible outcome. So I
Well,
like that. That's a really good tool.
it's mental rehearsal in a way for the experiences you're about to experience. What would it feel like, for example, to be on a stage and speaking on that stage in front of 50,000 people confidently and empowering them? It's not about you. It's about what it feels like to empower somebody else. So it's not about me being famous. It's about me being in the position to empower other people. Those are two different psychological perspectives to take. Or instead of
Right.
I'm dealing with this problem, because I deal with a lot of complex stuff all the time, whether it's a legal kind of thing or financial or business or whatever. You're dealing with complex things. But if you make it about yourself and how you're going to be and how you're going to show up versus what you're doing and what's the goal, which is always in a loving energy and a loving alignment, then you're shifting yourself from a self-centered point of view to
Mm-hmm.
a altruistic oneness point of view, that together we're going to advance as people. We're going to learn, we're going to overcome ignorance, we're going to do something. And then that's a more noble effort than how am I going to show up? How's this going to work out for me kind of point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting too, because when you're just thinking about yourself, you can easily say, no, I don't want to do this. And you can get stuck in that negative mindset. But if you're showing up and you realize, well, I'm bettering the human consciousness, or I'm doing this for a purpose, or if I don't do it, then I'm going to be letting down people, or I'm not community minded, or all of those things, that gives you an extra sense of oomph, sort of to move forward. Which I think is a lot of, when people ask what our purpose is here, right? It's not to be self-centered. It's to enhance the world around us,
Yeah.
and connect with that.
Yeah.
Um, you're probably reprogramming your subconscious too. I mean, I've read a lot about there being three births, the day that you're born, when you realize that you're an individual, and then, when you have your awakening to realize that we're all connected.
Yeah,
Um,
I like
and
that.
that, yeah, that's one of the points that really help you connect with your soul and your purpose for being here. So, that's a really cool way to get people in that mindset,
Yeah.
yeah, and to, I guess, to get them to understand that the monotony, and I think that's probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is something that you can speak on, is, helping some of these executives or celebrities get over the monotony, right? And understand the purpose of what they're doing.
I think it,
Yeah.
it goes right back to being self-centered or altruistic. It's really like, whew, I've written a lot about corporate governance. I've written a lot about executive leadership and layoff culture and all of this stuff. And it's always going, well, how can I enrich myself? How can I increase my own vanity? How can I get more for myself? How can I get more people to, give me clout and this and that? And that is the road of destruction. It never, ever pays off. I've done this long enough to know it. You're in deep doo doo if you're going to be going down that path. I think like when people are building something for their community, they're employing other people, they're giving people who are creative and otherwise would not have the, whether it's a disabled person or somebody who doesn't have the ability to communicate, you're giving them a job and you're giving them a means of expression of their own talent and perspective. You're bringing people together, you're uniting people for a purpose to improve your community. Everything just seems to flow so much better. And in an odd way, the more people push you up in a leadership position. So there is that two different roads of leadership and business. Is, oh, I'm just gonna get a job and make more money and people are gonna like me. I mean, I've had clients say, I want to be in the magazine, I want to be in the newspaper, I want to be on the stage and give a TED talk. It's always me, 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 me. But the
Mm-hmm.
people who are like, hey, I noticed there's this problem here and we need to help these people, odds are you're going to be facing a lot of conflict from
Mm-hmm.
opposition from people who are, going, no, I don't want to change the status quo. But then also you're going to get a lot of support from people who say, yeah, we do need to change these things. And you're empowering people along the way and you're building this connection and this community of like minded people who want to do something better for the world. So one path makes you more alone. One path unites you with more people. So that's how it is. Am I acting self-centered or am I acting altruistically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting because it's sort of like the picture of Dorian Gray versus like really understanding, what you're doing, and know that the tone is set at the top, and people are put in leadership positions. And, this is something I think about a lot, especially people that are in leadership positions, to understand what that means, the
Mm-hmm.
ethics behind it, to simplify it, like the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
Everything they do and every opportunity they give other people, then, in its own way enhances the community, the world, the people that work for them.
Yeah.
And it, yeah, it's, I don't know, it's profound. It's,
It is. It is. The people I know that I've worked with who are just so successful in their life have
mhm,
helped so many people and who've put a spotlight on so many people and given them
mhm,
jobs and helped them. I mean, I always talk about the Balmas, Larry and Louise Balma. Larry was a co-founder of Tracker Trucks and Trans World Magazine, and Louise Balma is his wife, and she was, instrumental in helping the company scale globally in Trans World Surf, Skate, Snow, and they have this incredible legacy of giving so many people opportunities. Sean White, his
mhm,
mom Kathy was telling Louise, "You gotta put my kid in this event at Big Bear." Okay, they gave this little kid Sean White a chance, and where he is now. Tony Hawk, just this little skater kid. Where is he now? These are people for me in my career. The people who give people a spotlight, they're my heroes. I love them. The ones who buy the artwork, who put the shows on for the photographers, the people who give the people jobs, who employ people. That's, for me, they're the heroes. The people who go, I just want to be famous and look at this, and in one ear and out the other. They don't have anything to offer. It's not sustaining. It's not real. It's not authentic. It's not original. It's not caring. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the examples of people for me as a coach that I feel are the most influential in life and in business.
That's great. That's that's really cool. I don't know. That means a lot to me. I just think that's a really great way, sort of, to describe who the real heroes are. You
Yeah.
know, the heroes in the community, and they're not necessarily who people would think that they are. So you had mentioned earlier that you're not doing as much coaching as you had done previously. What's your passion right now?
Uh, so I finished law school, so I was in the process of fading out coaching and doing more legal stuff. And it wasn't to become a lawyer. I couldn't see myself doing it. It was more for legal communication. I got into the process of law school, made me realize how ableist law school education is. It's just reading and audio, and it wasn't visual. And I'm neurodivergent. I see things visually. My husband has severe ADHD, so the way he reads is like he doesn't read an actual book. And I just noticed, hey, there's something going on with the legal education realm. There's something wrong with this. It's, inherently biased towards wealthy white men. Women are increasing now since 2016,
Mm-hmm.
for obvious reasons, getting law degrees. But there's a lot of minorities in legal education, and even for young people who are disabled or blind. California lost a lawsuit to a blind student because the exams were not conducive to disability. So that was my thing. Oh wow, we could really innovate legal education. So I started creating visual outlines of laws, and I sold those things like gangbusters to all over the country. Top law schools, Duke Law, Loyola, I mean, all over the place. People were buying them. And I realized, oh, there's something different here. And with the last 10 years in politics, people are severely misinformed about the law. And so as I was doing all this research about legalized exploitation in the world today, how people essentially are becoming a slave class because of legalized ways of keeping people poor. And I
Mm-hmm.
explored that through 14 different bodies of law. I'm about to publish a book on that. And I realized, I could write all this in a seventh grade reading level. So it could be easier for people to understand. So for me, it was about legal education, legal communication, and legal empowerment. So I'm totally into that. And then I
Mm-hmm.
also, for funsies, I wrote a feminist spicy romance novel called La Liberacion. And I just did that because it was an outlet for me. But I talk
Mm-hmm.
about all the things that we question as women, bodily autonomy, marriage, financial independence, international, being multiracial and interracial relationships, and all of these things, all the things that are on my mind. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's all these things I notice in the world that we're all struggling with, or that a certain group is struggling with, and finding a solution for that, finding a dialogue for that to empower other people. And as a result, I had a lot of fun doing all of it.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And it reminded me sort of something that I've been thinking about a lot is, I'm a millennial, and I feel like millennials are sort of this bridge generation between, a more traditional society and then things shifting where, Gen Z very much has an open mind. And, millennial is this weird space in between where our parents had very traditional values, and we were, sort of raised in a way that wasn't feminist, right? To have traditional gender roles and all of these things. And we ended up in a world and economy where that didn't make any damn sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? Women were having to work, men were having to work. We are butting heads with our partners because we don't know what we're supposed to do. We're both working. Who's supposed to clean the house? Who's supposed to do this? Are you being divinely masculine? Am I being divinely
Yeah.
feminine? Or have we now just like put everything in a jar and shaken it up, and now we don't know what's what, and also don't have anybody to ask advice from, right?
Yeah.
This weird void that we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really interesting that you are talking about feminism or different ways of thinking or showing people, or normalizing those things. And writing about them, I think is very cool to give people the tools that we have all struggled to sort of figure out
Oh yeah.
um,
Oh
in the
yeah.
span of time.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And for you to notice that there's a necessity for that there's a
Mhm.
necessity for those conversations and that literature to be available for the people that are like, gosh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to navigate these types of things, which are so prevalent in our lives and are confusing as hell.
Yeah, I think that's how my job searching career change workbook, It Pays to Be You, that was a result of coaching people across the globe for so long, and I noticed all the common problems and what phases people were going through in their career development or their job search process, and I put that into a package that could scale because not everybody could afford $300 an hour with a coach for
Right.
several months. So I said, well, what could I do to make this more affordable? A $20 book for somebody. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I endured that process. In the process, I became a publisher to
Mhm.
create tools for people. So you become all these things in the process of helping other people. And it's not about having all the answers in the beginning. It's about figuring it out the whole way and
Right.
reaching out to people and getting new ideas. And the great thing about young people is and the confines of the law that create the economy in the world as it is. Young people are always creating new economies and new ways of getting through the world and getting around all these limitations. And you'll
Right.
see that throughout all history. Legal history shows that so. But, as we grow older and we realize what used to work, what got us here won't get us there, then we have to evolve and change, which goes back to that original conversation we had that it is our nature to ever expand. So it's our nature to break free more and more every day.
That's great. So tell me, if anybody wants to utilize your tools, learn about you, and what you're doing, where can they find you?
It's very simple. LeslieJuvin-Acker.com, all one word, or on Instagram, Leslie Juvin-Acker. You can find me there. All my links to all my social, my videos on YouTube, my books, they're all on that website. Obviously, you can search on Amazon my name. But if you want to see my latest blog posts or my Instagrams or my stories, you can just go to those two places.
Well, I know I'll be checking out everything that you have to offer on your website and checking out your books, and I hope that we can talk again.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I really enjoyed having you.
thank
Um,
you.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.